probably been my challenge with cancer. And it wasn't just a regular cancer, it was a stage 4 advanced cancer to liver and lungs. My diagnosis said, with this kind of cancer, it's usually very quick and there isn't a lot of time to prepare. So it would be good to get your affairs in order. I saw this beautiful little animal, little bird just tweeting, and I just stopped and admired the sound. And it seemed, you just think of these things. There's so many gifts that we take for granted if we're not careful. Obviously, falling down a mountain, you technically are that close to being dead, where your life can be snuffed out very quickly.
Welcome to the Sacred Conversation, and I am Daniela Haskara. Today I have an interview with Trevor Miller and his healing journey. And I'm so excited that you could join me.
Welcome. Thank you very much too. I appreciate being invited to this experience.
Let me ask you, what has been on your journey the key aha moments of some of your experiences? Thank you for sharing all these beautiful experiences from your past. Let me ask you about what was maybe the biggest challenge in your life.
Boy. Well, obviously falling down a mountain, and there's been several other near hits like that where your life can be snuffed out very quickly. I guess they are really the biggest challenge because you technically are that close to being dead. But having said that, the ones which are more ongoing has probably been my challenge with cancer. And it wasn't just a regular cancer, it was a stage 4 advanced cancer to liver and lungs. And the oncologist was not very reassuring with my diagnosis. He said, with this kind of cancer, it's usually very quick and there isn't a lot of time to prepare. So it would be good to get your affairs in order, and we'll do the best we can, but there's not a real lot we can really do except just delay it somewhat. So I said, well, let me think about that, because he was wanting to put me on an experimental treatment. And talked it over with some close friends, and the conclusion was, any treatment is better than none. You might better get started. And the bottom line was it didn't work, and it failed, and it failed miserably. Immunotherapy, which sounds good, but the one they wanted to do was a new one, which they hoped for would have better results than the regular immunotherapy. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it had horrible side effects. And one of them was adrenal fatigue, which means your adrenals are completely gone, can't be ever recover. And then the other one was digestive damage, where I basically was losing weight and had permanent diarrhea for nearly a year. And they had nothing they could do to fix that. So between those two, they put me out to pasture. Said, we've done the best we can. We're really sorry, but that's the risk you took when you took the experimental treatment. And there's nothing much more we can do. The only thing we can do now is if that damage to the digestive system recovers, we can maybe put you on another treatment. And I said, okay. So I didn't have much trust at that time in traditional medicine. So I put it out to my network. Anyone who's got anything at all about treatments, let me know. And I got so many emails and so many texts that I couldn't answer them all, because I was this time very thin. I became like a skeleton with a head on a stick after all this botched treatment. And all I did was put out the email, and I asked for people to try and fill my calls and fill my texts and emails to try and tell me which were the best suggestions. Well, anyway, as much as my friends were helpful at sending me information, there was very few people who wanted to collate all the data, and I don't blame them. Everyone's got their own lives. We're all trying to keep above water in whatever way we're doing our life. So for anyone to collate emails and try and work out the efficacies of treatments. It's just like, good luck, mate. We hope it works. So I tried ones that felt safer and had good results. And as I got my strength, I read up more emails and tried more. And then I put out some, thank goodness, by the grace of Davica and Scott Thomas, two close people in my life, they put up a GoFundMe and money came in, which was shocking to me, because I was a fairly private sort of guy who didn't really, I sent out a few emails about trips, but I didn't really get too much into my personal life so much on the public airwaves. And here I was getting donations to my cancer healing. So I used that for all kinds of alternative home therapies, because I didn't have trust in the big doctors, as in the big hospitals, after what they did to me. And I basically got all kinds of treatments going. I wrote a list on my GoFundMe site of 67 protocols. So to answer your question about, I felt that I was divinely guided to go through this journey. I felt, okay, how did I get cancer at the age of 61, when a lot of my friends are running around fit as a fiddle, and they were probably doing anyway. It's like a crapshoot. You don't know where and how and why, but when it comes, I took a breath and thought, okay, God, you got me through that cliff experience. You got me through half a dozen other written close calls. I'm sure you're going to get me through this. Or if I'm going to go down, it'll be with all guns blazing, because I'm not quite ready to say goodbye. And when I became a head on a stick, I put out a video to let my group know this is where I'm at now. But if it's meant to be, inshallah, God willing, in God I trust, I release myself to the great universe, and I will go in the divine journey that is obviously where is my next step.
Let me understand the time frame. You found out about your diagnosis around the end of summer. What year was that again?
I got the diagnosis in 2018 in September. Mm-hmm. And on the immuno treatment, which completely, as I said, destroyed me. And then I was a basket case, and I stayed at Laurie Grace's for 9 months. By her courtesy, she stepped up and said, Trev, I'd like you to stay here, and we'll at least have a room for you, because it was impossible for me to work or do anything on that level while I was in a deep crisis. And she didn't want it to be made public, but I think now I can give her credit that she did a lot to give me a space. And in that space, I was able to ask with my GoFundMe through my friends who set up. I had no idea even how to go around that one, get that one started. I was able to create income, which allowed me to buy treatments. And the treatments were effective because by the 6 months after that period, maybe 9 months into diagnosis, I started getting smaller cancers. They were growing small, and the doctor was thinking, wow, there must be a delayed reaction from that immunotherapy that we thought we'd failed. I couldn't quite tell him that I was taking massive amounts of vitamin C, and I realized that with all the maturity that I had as a 61-year-old man, that all that stuff, falling over mountains and taking medicines and going to churches and cathedrals all around the world, I didn't explain half of what I went to. I virtually wanted to go to every sacred site in the world where they were on ley lines, which they all are anyway, and where the energy was very intense. I wanted to go into that deep energetic state, high frequency. So whatever was the truth was, I was going to be in the middle of that frequency. So I did meditate on the top of Ayers Rock in Australia, Uluru, which is the sacred male initiation spot. For the ancient culture of Australian Aboriginals, who are the Indigenous people who've been here 70,000 continuous years of civilization, and that was their male initiation in the great centre of the outback. So I was actually allowed there to spend 3 days on top of the rock in a cave. And most people aren't, especially white people, aren't ever allowed to go there and do that. But I was very fortunate in that regard. And then the female initiation is Kata Juta, and I was also there in a similar state. So that was just one of multiple experiences. Another one was I went to the Tikal but I didn't get so much energy in the Mayan pyramids. For some reason, my past lives didn't take me there. But in ancient Egypt, I felt a strong affinity. And I was very lucky. I had a romantic relationship with an Egyptian tour guide who was a trainee, but she had the credentials. And she got me into the Great Pyramid. And then she talked in Egyptian to the guards. And they all left the tomb for half an hour. And because she knew I would like to have that sacred experience of going into the sarcophagus. So there I was. Luckily, it was in a low season. I got to experience what it's like to be in the Great Pyramid, in the sarcophagus alone. And that was a whole experience unto itself. But the reason why I'm going on, and there's many other experiences which I can share maybe at another point, but I could say a couple. I went to Stonehenge, and in Stonehenge, the guard, I'm very, very lucky when it comes to guards and security, and maybe they just feel where I'm coming from. I'm not a tourist as far as taking photos and anything. I'm just simply wanting to experience the power and the energy. And most of the guards, I think, who worked, and not all of them, some of them get it, and they kind of shoo me in. So one of the guards said, all right, you can go into the circle in the Stonehenge, which was not normally allowed to tourists. So when everyone was gone, he said, you've got all to yourself. And so I went in there, and I went into the middle of the circle, and I just found some really high energy places, which I was able to go into a deep place. The reason why I traveled the world was to find the secrets. And when I found a secret place, I always felt that the secret for me is to take the vibration, the harmony, the frequency of that place, hold it deeply into my heart chakra, and just try to have that with me wherever I go. Well, the conclusion I came to is that it's all very well to go to these places, but at the end of the day, all it is about energy and acknowledging and feeling and becoming one with that energy. And so really to come back to the cancer, I felt I was an accumulation of all that I had been through, and this was the big test. It was almost like, okay, Trev, you got your credentials, you've done this, you've done that, blah, 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 blah. But what does it all mean if you can't apply it in the moment when you need to apply it? And that also comes at being compassionate. I mean, I had to get a little bit humbled in one period of my life in America. And I thought by being humbled, I actually got to be experiencing what it means to receive compassion and to be able to offer compassion to others without asking anything back. And so life took me through a whole circle, from being very successful in certain fields to being very humbled and needing of help. It was an amazing gifting of so many people who I didn't know. And I was kind of amazed at the kindness of the human spirit when they don't know you, but they read about you, or they recommend it from a friend, or someone writes a good story about you, whatever it is. That deep sense of compassion and kindness was really amazing. And I was never able to thank everybody. I tried to through group emails, but when I was sick, trying to get down on the typewriter was the last thing I could really do, except do little thank you videos on Facebook, that type of thing.